Hello everyone, Gen Z Hi-Fi here with a technical video on a 1984 Sony STR-AV560 receiver. This was one of those early AV receivers that only boasted video switching, but it still had a very good audio suite inside. It uses two extra low distortion STK packs. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but this is a pretty well built receiver despite the faceplate being mostly plastic. There are metal buttons on the front, and this does weigh about 17 pounds. It's 65 watts per channel RMS, regular stereo. You can have A and B speakers. The tuner of this receiver is also very cool. You can manually input your stations with the keypad on the right side, but if you want, this receiver can automatically scan through stations and pick out the strongest reception ones according to the signal strength that you put it to. And I like that it kind of looks like the lights inside of Kit from Knight Rider. It's a very cool scanning graphic that they do where it's just a vertical bar that travels along the bottom of the screen and lights up stations as it goes by. And then once those are put in its memory, you can change between them using the plus and minus buttons on there. You can select the next station in the lit up tuner section, and it will keep cycling through until you press another button, such as the signal strength button. This also has tuner memory, so you can change to a station and put it into this receiver's memory that corresponds with the keypad buttons. And you can recall those memory presets at any point if you want to directly tune into a channel without having to manually put in all of the numbers. You would just press whatever button on the keypad corresponded to that channel. Next, I'm going to open up the receiver and talk to you about the mild repairs that I did, as well as show you them. Despite being a receiver from 1984, this was actually pretty easy to work on, and I enjoyed my servicing experience with it as well. A lot of the componentry inside, like the circuit boards, are connected to the main PCB by ribbon cables, and all of them are color-coded and have different headers with different pins sizes, so you're not going to accidentally put the wrong one somewhere else, and you're also not going to accidentally connect it backwards, because there's only one way in which these can be connected. So after I disconnected all of those ribbon cables, I was able to get to the circuit boards that I needed in the front panel display so that I could clean the buttons. Another fix I did was replacing the hard soldered 3-volt coin cell that drives the backup memory of the main IC inside the receiver. I had pulled it out of circuit and tested it, and it showed around 1.6 volts, which was apparently enough to keep the backup memory alive. But I decided that in case someone wanted to replace it in the future, it would be much easier to do that from a normal battery carriage that you can just pop a battery in and out of. So I soldered one in the hardwired one's place, and I put in a new coin cell battery. The next fix I did, which I'm particularly proud of, had to do with these two ICs that controlled the tuner end of the receiver. After a while of warming up the tuner would no longer output any audio, although the rest of the functionality worked, such as scanning for stations, directly tuning to them, and showing the signal strength of each station. It was just the audio function that stopped working, and if you were to jimmy the buttons on the front panel enough, sometimes you could get it to play back. Sometimes it would be at the normal volume set on the receiver, or sometimes it would be a lot louder. And this was pretty inconsistent as you kept wiggling the buttons. So I initially thought that it was the chip going bad, but that turns out it was actually just some bad solder. And I guess when I was jimmying the buttons, I was moving the board enough, or the chassis was being flexed enough by jimmying the buttons that it was making an intermittent connection. Not really a fix, more like a general improvement, but there was rust starting on the bottom access panel of this receiver. So I had removed the rust and then spray painted it black. It's a nice matte black that honestly looks pretty period accurate, and it matches the top cover of the receiver, so I think it looks better than when it did it out of the factory, in my opinion. Removing the bottom access panel is as simple as slightly unscrewing the bottom screws. You don't even have to remove them completely because they are inside these keyhole looking holes in the bottom cover. So once you screwed the screws loose enough, you can just slide the bottom cover forward and lift it without having to lose any of them. So that's a great job again to Sony's engineers. As you can see, once that bottom access panel is off, you get unfettered access to the main circuit board, which is another great design by Sony. That made addressing the cracked solder joints very easy, and you had a lot of space to work in order to do that job. So that was a very easy fix that I could do, and it was not difficult to set up and not difficult to clean up afterward. There was no disassembly required other than taking that bottom panel off. Even though I upgraded to a nicer and higher powered Yamaha, I still have a lot of respect for this unit. The ease of repair, the thoughtfulness of the circuit layout, such as not having small capacitors beside heat generators like heat sinks or other chips or transistors that go hot during operation, and clearly labeling everything on the circuit boards and including the symbols for everything just made this such a joy to work on, and I just really appreciate the craftsmanship of this. Even though this is not the top of the line unit, it's actually one underneath, the Sony STR-AV560. It's still a very quality piece of engineering, and the components are very quality as well. Every single capacitor in there is a Nichicon, and like I said, this has intelligent PCB layout. Everything is easy to access, pretty easy to service if you don't have to end up replacing an IC or an STK pack. But I don't think you will. It uses higher quality STK packs than normal because they're the extra low distortion package. And everything else in here is of very good quality as well. So it's no wonder this thing was working in the consignment store that I got it from 40 odd years later. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time.